Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday evening. I want to take the time to thank Congresswoman Haaland, Senator Udall for taking the time to talk to us about 30 by 30 with some of our high school youth that we work with. We think that it's important that this generation takes the lead on this. And I think 30 by 30 is a really important piece of legislation. And I think for two reasons that it really stands out for us is that it's a focus on biodiversity, which I think should be a benchmark for any sort of, when we're talking about protecting land, I think biodiversity needs to be a part of that puzzle and a part of that piece. And I think the second one is that it really is intentional about bringing in partners, bringing in state land agencies, bringing in our indigenous communities, private landowners, cities, counties. I think that's a really important piece. This isn't just about protecting large areas of land, right? But it's about being smart, and it's also doable, right? I think there's a real path forward. And I think we're excited to be a part of building that roadmap to getting to 30 by 30. And if I can plug Otero Mesa, one of the largest remaining Chihuahuan grassland areas, as a piece of that puzzle, I think that's important to do. So I'm going to throw it off to Alyssa. She's going to be guiding us through this evening. And again, thank you, Senator and Congresswoman, for being here.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Wright. I'm a student here at NMSU. I'm actually majoring in political science and Spanish. So for me, 30 by 30 is super important because I myself grew up outdoors. I love hunting, I love fishing, I love hiking, I love just enjoying the outdoors. And I think 30 by 30 is so important for conservation, not only of our animals, our lands, and their natural habitat, which is so significant. So 30 by 30 is something us as an organization and student members within the community, we're excited to learn about and make sure we have questions and we're interacting with our true key leaders within our community. With that said, today we have Congresswoman Deb Haaland and Senator Tom Udall. So if you guys would like to do an introduction, starting with Congresswoman Deb Haaland on yourself and why 30 by 30 is significant to you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, and thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. This is a really terrific event. And Senator Udall, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. So look, thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you, because I love talking about the 30 by 30 initiative, and I love talking about climate change because I think we always need to talk about it so we can do something about it. I'm a 35th generation New Mexican and one of the first two Native American women elected to the US House of Representatives. As a Pueblo woman, I was raised to feel connected to the earth and to carry on the legacy of environmental stewardship of countless generations who came before me, who took seriously their obligations to pass our natural treasures on to future generations. I learned from my grandparents and my parents to revere nature. And throughout my life, I have worked to protect our open spaces, our air, our water. I think it's our duty to conserve land for our children and grandchildren. Our communities deserve fresh air to breathe, clean water to drink, and a livable planet. But right now, inaction on climate change is putting everything at risk, particularly in communities of color. Globally, the loss of nature accelerated by climate change is putting up to 1 million species on the path to extinction. Conserving our lands and waters is essential to protecting humans and wildlife and stabilizing our climate. So we followed the direction from leading scientists and introduced this resolution to set a national goal of conserving 30% of America's land and oceans by 2030. And this will tackle this urgent crisis. I see my brilliant young people here today, and I'm so looking forward to answering your questions and the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always a great pleasure to follow Representative Deb Haaland. She's brilliant, and she laid out a good case by 30 by 30. And I'll try to not repeat, because I think it's important that we get quickly to your questions. First of all, Patrick, thank you for that kind introduction. And let me just say to the young people on this call, when I look at the crises that we face, whether it's the extinction crisis, whether it's the global warming crisis, I am inspired by the young people who are really standing up and forming a movement all over the world. I remember Greta Thunberg, who visited some of the most powerful leaders over there at Davos. There's the Sunshine Movement. There's so many movements that are out there, and you all are forming a coalition that's going to get us to where we need to be on both of these crises. I just want to say a little bit about myself. I've been in public service now for 30 years. Being born in the Udall family, my father was very active in the out of doors. My mom and dad used to take us camping and jeeping and hiking and rock climbing and all sorts of things. And so the out of doors is part of my DNA. And I couldn't agree more with Representative Haaland in terms of we've had many conversations, and there's some real native wisdom in terms of stewardship of the earth that I've studied over the years and the many friendships that I've had. And so we're really fortunate to have somebody like Deb in the Congress able to speak up and to share that wisdom with us. So thank you, and I'm excited about getting on to questions.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Haaland and Senator Udall. This truly means the world for us to have you guys here and truly hear our voices, because we are the new generation that's going to take over. And with that said, we have 3 students who are part of the Las Cruces Public Schools Student Advisory Council. This is a group of students who come together. They even go up to Santa Fe and they advocate for what they believe is right and what will affect our future, of which one of those is climate change. We also have a student from NMSU who is part of an organization called Defend Our Future, which is an environmental advocacy organization at NMSU. With that said, we'll start off with our first panelist, Adelaide.
Hi, my name is Adelaide Overding, and I'm a junior at Las Cruces High School. I have an interest in majoring in government because I believe that the youth of this new generation have been given a voice through social media that those before us haven't had. I think it's important to use the voice we have been given for good and spread information on important issues such as climate change. Through social media, I have learned about the importance of protecting public lands in order to slow the effects of climate change, and I hope to use my voice to teach others the same lesson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Tomaszewski, and I'm a senior at Arrowhead Park Medical Academy in Las Cruces. Climate change is a large issue to me because growing up in the Boy Scouts program, I've learned that nature is a treasure trove of beauty. Protecting its resources and conserving its land will only help preserve the traditions of many families in New Mexico.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby Samalone, and I care about 30 by 30 because it affects all types of communities, specifically our beautiful deserts and the creatures that roam in them. And we need to take care of our wildlife as well as our future generations, and we need to give back to the earth that's given us everything.
Hello, I'm Kyla Navarro, and I'm currently majoring in government and minoring in economics at NMSU. So I grew up in the Philippines, and I had a very deep connection near the ocean and the tropics. And I know that my back home, it'll be greatly impacted by climate change. So I think it's very important for our government to take bold climate actions to make sustainable communities, to make our communities sustainable.
Thank you all for the beautiful introductions. Thank you so much for helping with this event. I can't show my gratitude enough. This truly means the world. And with that saying, people who are joining on Zoom, you may be questioning, what is 30 by 30? We're ready to get in with that. And starting with our first question, Adelaide.
Senator Udall, how do you feel 30 by 30 will help us in the fight against climate change?
Hey, thank you so much, Adelaide. And let me first say about 30 by 30. What we're talking about is the scientists who study the earth and study global warming. And they said if we have any chance of tackling this, of solving the problem, we need to preserve 30% of our land and 30% of our waters, including our oceans. And so we're in a situation where we're not doing that. Actually, at this point in time, every second we lose a football field's size of habitat and nature. So this is happening very rapidly. And protecting and preserving and restoring our public lands and waters presents a great opportunity for making great and terrific gains on our climate goals. The accelerating climate crisis is destroying habitats and ecosystems. And as habitats and ecosystems are destroyed, the planet is losing its life support system and the ability to absorb and capture the carbon that continues to warm our atmosphere. Scientists have said that the loss and degradation of forests alone produces about 12% of human-caused carbon dioxide emissions. So really, what we need to do is focus on 30 by 30, get that goal done both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And the wonderful thing about this is we can all be a part of it. Wherever we are, we can be a part of it and we can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Udall, for those words and expressing that everyone, you can make a change just even from being in your own house, in your own community. And with that said, next we'll go to Anthony.
My question is for Congresswoman Haaland. Why is 30 by 30 needed now?
Thank you so much for the question, Anthony. I want to say we needed 30 by 30, 20 years ago, right? So it's definitely needed now. As Senator Udall said, the situation is dire and we have to work now. This is an urgent matter. So look, last year, the United Nations Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services released its global assessment that predicted the extinction of 1 million species. And just last week, the World Wildlife Fund released its Living Planet report for 2020. It found that the population sizes of mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles have seen an average drop of 68% since 1970. And Senator Udall spoke to the loss of a football field every second. Imagine if we saw that right here in our city, how much of, whatever city you're living in would be gone in pretty much no time. So as our climate changes and habitat is altered, wildlife that is already being squeezed by development needs somewhere to go. This leads to conflicts between wildlife and people and to things like zoonotic diseases jumping to people, and we've seen that in COVID-19. We need to reverse this trend, and a commitment by conserving 30% of our lands and oceans by 2030 is absolutely the way to do it. So this is an urgent matter. We need it. We need to do this in the United States, and we need to work with our partners around the world. Excuse me, those are my dogs. To do it globally. I'm always in self-isolation with 4 dogs, so that's hard to get away from. But we are, this is something that all of us need to commit to. And so I know that Senator Udall is committed to it. And I believe that one of our presidential candidates is also committed to 30 by 30. So we'll just keep pushing it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, every single person who ran for the presidency on the Democratic side committed to 30 by 30 before they ended up getting out of the race. So we have solid support. Not to say that this is a partisan issue in any way, and should be, because we need good, solid, conservationist Republicans with us.
Thank you so much, both Congresswoman Haaland and Senator Udall, on explaining this urgent matter. Sometimes we haven't often to forget, we're outside all the time, we forget how important it is to conserve this land. Our next question up is from Gabby.
Senator Udall, so my question to you is, what is the science and reasoning behind 30 by 30?
Gabby, that's a great question. First of all, you've got to understand is we consulted with scientists in the United States and scientists from all over the world. As you know, at the UN, scientists have been working on global warming for a number of years, and the consensus on global warming is the world scientists, not just the United States. So the 30 by 30 resolution is a response to this growing group of scientists who have said that conserving at least 30% of our ocean and land is the minimum step necessary to adequately address the extinction, climate, and biodiversity crises. Americans love and appreciate our natural heritage and remarkable landscapes. But if we don't take bold action, like 30 by 30 now, our life support system, and when I talk about our life support system, I'm talking about air, water, food, medicine, energy, and the ability to enjoy the treasured outdoor spaces. All of that will be lost to future generations. Are any of you interested in becoming scientists? We need you if you are. You are planning, if you're planning to go to college or you're already there, we also think that about pursuing degrees in natural sciences and biology and botany are very important. So thank you to the folks at NMSU and UNM who will support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Udall. And answering the question about why 30 by 30 is needed now. And I think it's so important to stress with our community members is 30 by 30 is a starting point. There's so much more out there and room for improvement that we often look back and this should have been done years and years ago. But we're looking at what we can do now to increase a better future. So I have a question for Congresswoman Haaland. How do you believe that climate change impacts our communities we serve as a state of New Mexico, as well as nationally?
Yes, so in my subcommittee, we've heard testimony that protecting unaltered ecosystems is important for ensuring species can adapt to climate change. And we've had lots of conversations about adaptation. And so, but at some point, right, how much can you adapt? We have to just preserve land and waters for our animals and for our plants, in fact. An amazing initiative called the Land Witness Project that was launched this week, and it's pretty amazing, where volunteers interview New Mexicans about what they've seen. A farmer from my district, for example, his name is Lorenzo Candelaria. He's a 7th generation Atrisco farmer, and he is seeing changes to the land that New Mexicans have farmed here for 300 years. Our local farms and ranches are experiencing intense drought, poor air quality from fires in California and the Southwest region. There's cold snaps. It's cold when it shouldn't be cold. It's hot when it shouldn't be hot. It's windy. Well, it's windy in New Mexico all the time. But sometimes we've noticed the changes, and sooner or later, you know, it's going to affect you know, the everyday wildlife that we see. If you live in the North Valley, you probably have goose flying over your house. If you, you know, there's hummingbirds and so forth. But the warmer it gets, those species get confused about where they're supposed to go. So I think it's a good idea for all of us to like take a look around us. What are our surroundings like, and how, I mean, why we should be documenting these changes so that we can, you know, think about this in the way that it affects us personally. So we feel like if we can protect all these areas, the headwaters, the riparian areas, and so forth, that we can give wildlife opportunities to adapt to the changing climate and the encroachment of development. Sportsmen and anglers, they want to see species to have somewhere to live, and so they support the idea of conserving 30% of our land and oceans because, I mean, they rely on species also. So look, we want to make sure that we ensure equitable access to the lands, that we create more opportunities for sportsmen, for anglers, for people like you who just want to be outdoors and enjoy being outside. And so we will keep fighting for this and working hard to make sure we're convincing our colleagues to support 30 by 30.
Thank you, Congresswoman Haaland, for saying those words. I think it's so important, especially as us youth. We've had conversations in the past with the Student Advisory Council talking about how important it is to put the trust in people who are representing us, who we're voting for, who are going to truly make that change and protect that land for us. And with that said, next we have Kayla with a question.
And my question is for Congresswoman Haaland and also Senator Udall. And what is it, or what can we do here in New Mexico to fight climate change?
Kaylin, that's a great question. And I wanted to also add a little bit to some of the impacts I've seen from constituents. Some of this overlaps with Representative Haaland. But in New Mexico, we have a great agricultural economy. But you got to understand that agriculture depends on water. So if you have more and more severe droughts, what happens is you have less and less water. You have less snowpack, which means less water, and that means that you dramatically change what's available to agriculture. And so agriculture has to respond in very dramatic ways, and sometimes it drives many of these young family farmers and other farmers right out of business. The other thing I've seen is the forest fires have gone from smaller fires just in our lifetime to now catastrophic fires. And what do I mean by that? They're so big, they're so hot that we can't fight them until Mother Nature slows them down. And they burn so big that they destroy, in some cases, millions of acres of land. New Mexico, in recent decades, has had two of the biggest wildfires in our state history, our entire more than 100-year history, just very recently. And that's what climate change and global warming are doing. And when we talk about water overall, we need water for human beings, we need water for agriculture, we need water for so many uses. You know, businesses use water, and what people are always saying, if a business wants to move here, they ask how much water there is, and businesses mean jobs. And so all of that is tremendously important. Let me get back to your question on addressing climate change and the impacts. You know, New Mexico has made important gains in addressing climate change. You should be very proud of some of the things your governor and your state legislature have done. In 2019, they passed the landmark Energy Transition Act, which sets a goal for New Mexico's investor-owned utilities to make the state's electricity supply 100% carbon-free by 2045. And actually, the interesting thing there is the power company, one of the big power companies, the largest in New Mexico, said, "You've set 2045 as a goal. We worked with you on this legislation. We actually think we can do it 5 years early by 2040. That's pretty impressive. The governor also directed two of her cabinet secretaries to develop a climate change plan that creates a roadmap for steps the state needs to take to reduce its carbon footprint. And on the local level, I know that elected representatives like the Las Cruces City Council and even the NMSU student government have passed resolutions that call for carbon-free energy supplies in the next few decades. They are showing real leadership. So my message to all of you is stay engaged. When you're eligible to vote, do it. Get your friends to vote, get your parents to vote, and tell them why it's so important to vote. We have an election, as you know, coming up very, very quickly. And speak out about the issues that matter to you. Make sure our elected leaders, like me, are responsive by calling. You call our offices, use social media, and create a march to the ballot box. That's something that's very important. So, and don't ever forget, get out and enjoy the land. So I'll turn it back to you, Deb.
Thank you, Senator. So yes, what can we do in New Mexico to address the climate change impacts. We need widespread support on this. So just you having this roundtable today and asking us questions about it so people can understand more of what 30 by 30 is, that's helping, right? That's helping to influence people. It's recording, you'll be able to share it many times. We just need to get it out there. Sometimes folks don't realize that they should be supporting something that's really great. So you're gonna help us get the word out and make sure that we can influence people to support our 30 by 30 resolution. We've seen local governments pass resolutions in support of this congressional action. You could go to your city councils, you could go to your county commissions, and you could offer a resolution that says, how about supporting this? You know, we want to save our planet and we would love you to participate. And they can say, yes, we support this. So I feel like we're trying to focus on the collective role that everyone plays. This is all of our planet. It's not just mine and Senator Udall's planet. And that's why we put the resolution forward. We're doing this for everybody because we want all of you to have a planet into the future. So we can concentrate on that and make sure that everybody is joining in and supporting this resolution. We've talked about using incentives for private landowners, for example, to voluntarily conserve and protect areas that they have that are most important for species and will have the greatest impact in reducing climate change. And those are always things that we can talk about and move forward. And of course, you know, those of us who have spent a lot of time outdoors, and I know Senator Udall has, we think about conserving our environment, making places more beautiful. That will bring tourism to our state because people will want to hike our trails and you know, fish in our lakes and rivers because they are clean and they're preserved. So we think that 30 by 30 will also increase economic opportunities for those folks who, you know, who are giving fly fishing lessons or taking a raft trip down the Rio Grande or whatever it is. We just feel that it's a win-win situation for so many people. And so that's part of why we want to do what we're doing.
Thank you so much, both Congresswoman Haaland and Senator Udall. Are you guys available for 1 or 2 questions from our audience who is watching? I just want to make sure you guys would have time.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have one, and it is, in states, especially those in the middle of the country, highly developed agriculturally, how much area is available to be protected? So whoever would like to take that question, you are more than welcome to.
Deb, do you want to jump in on that?
Well, I mean, when I mentioned about incentives for private landowners, those are options that we're hoping we can get some folks to, you know, to join in on. I went to out to the eastern part of my district, and there is a landowner out there who gave up some of their land to wind turbines, right? So they're generating electricity over past the Sandia Mountains on the east side. They are creating energy on their land with these wind turbines, and that was a voluntary thing, right? They actually get a check every month from the wind company, but I'm feeling like there's so much that private landowners can join in with to move our renewable energy economy forward. And I think there will be some to move our 30 by 30. So those are all conversations that I think we'll eventually need to have, but we also need to remember that local farming is something that we also want to support across the country. We need our local farmers and our family farmers to continue farming so that we don't have to import vegetables, that people can take advantage of the locality of folks growing food in their areas. So, so I think that there's a lot of conversations still to be had, and I'd be so excited to have those conversations.
Yeah, let me just add a little bit to what Representative Haaland said. You know, let's go back 100 years or more and ask what was out there in the plains in the middle part of our country. And let's not forget that these plains come right up to the western edge of New Mexico, if you look at the Great Plains. And there were buffalo herds bison herds of 60 million bison herds. And those herds were slaughtered in order to try to conquer Native Americans. And so I think one of the movements that is out there, and it's happening with tribes across the country, they are reviving the bison. And there are bison herds in many of the tribes all around the country, including here in New Mexico. And it's a wonderful thing to go and visit and see how they utilize those for their tribal purposes and for their cultural purposes. And then there's another movement out there in the Midwest of restoring the prairies that have been taken over. And I remember my father, when he was Secretary of Interior, he created a prairie grasslands refuge and national park and monument situation there in the Midwest, and it was supported by everybody. So there are a lot of people who are thinking in different ways and thinking maybe, you know, we might be a little better off if we had a mixture of things going on the land rather than just growing one crop. So there's a lot of activity. I would urge all the young people that are listening here, study up on what's happening, see what you want to get involved in. And that's a very interesting movement, I think, in the Midwest. So thank you so much for that question.
Thank you, Congresswoman Haaland and Senator Udall. We also have one that kind of combines, as our audience is wanting to know what should they take away from this discussion and what should they walk away and be able to advocate for climate change in 30 by 30, but also what can they do in their very own home? We know we're all quarantined trying to stay safe because of COVID, but what are some opportunities you guys see for individuals to advocate and spread the word about 30 by 30 to gain support? Sure,
Alyssa, that's a great question. And the first thing I would say to young people is you live in a system that we call a democracy. It's a republic. It's a little messy when you first start looking at it, and how decisions are made and how we move forward. But I would say the most important thing about it is that you're a part of it and your vote counts and your activity counts. So stay engaged. There was a wonderful anthropologist named Margaret Mead that said, small groups of committed citizens are the way to make change. It's the only way change has ever happened. And the big point that she was making there was that Margaret was saying, don't think you have to have a massive majority. You start a movement, it grows, you build coalitions, and then you get action. And so that when I say stay engaged, it includes everything. It includes from voting, telling your friends to vote, your parents to vote, but including all of that activity of you being involved in the movements that you really care about. We've had several movements in my lifetime and in the lifetime of my father. We've had the civil rights movement, which I also include in that, the gay community. We've had the women's movement, the environmental movement, and on the civil rights movement, also Native American rights, where Native Americans have stood up for their land and what they care about in terms of the cultural sites and history around the country. So there are very important things you can do to stay engaged. And then an important part of staying engaged is speaking out about the issues that matter to you. Make sure that elected leaders, somebody like me, who's in elected office, you know, you can drop into the offices down there in Las Cruces. I believe you have the offices. I know you have my office, Senator Udall's office. I know you have Senator Heinrich's office, and Xochitl Torres Small lives in Las Cruces, and she's your Congresswoman. You can go to those offices. The members of Congress may be in Washington, but they have staff, and the job of the staff is to work with you to understand what the congressperson is doing in terms of the issues that you care about. So I think that's a tremendously important way. And then the final thing, and it's kind of a little thread through what I've been talking about here, is coalition building is important. Don't always think of your movement as just isolated to one area. Think of what other movements that are out there could unite with you. And one of the big movements right now that I think of is we need to reform our democracy. It isn't working right. Too much big money drowning out the voices of ordinary citizens, and we need reform. And I don't believe, unless we get reform, any of the other things that you want, whether it's action on global warming or action on biodiversity or whatever the issue is, you're not going to get it without reform. And so groups are finding, let's all link together to get democracy to be back so the people's voices are heard, so that significant action is taken on climate change, on biodiversity, on 3030, and all the other things we care about. So my advice to you would be to really stay as much as possible engaged and build those coalitions with others that are working. And that way you do what Bobby Kennedy said in a way, which is every person who steps out and does something to kind of make a wrong right is like a drop that falls in a body of water, where you create ripples in every action, and you keep putting those drops in there, and eventually you have a tidal wave that will wash away injustice and set things right. So thank you again for that question. And let me just say again what an honor it is to be here with Representative Deb Haaland.
Thank you, Senator. And you know, I am so inspired by all of you. You know, when I was your age, I don't think I was an activist. I wasn't, you know, getting my congressional and Senate leaders to get on anything with me. I was probably not thinking about climate change. And I kind of feel bad that this generation is burdened with that worry. And I wish you didn't have to worry about it, but you do. And I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. You know, when I started in politics, I would look up candidates and see which ones I identified with. Which candidates care about the environment, which candidates care about people's rights to vote, which candidates care about the things I care about. And I would go to their offices and I would ask for lists of Native Americans, and I would make phone calls, because I felt like that was what I could do as a citizen, is to elect people who care about the things that I care about. And that's something that all of you can do, in addition to everything, all of the wonderful advice that Senator Udall gave you, which you should take with you, and you should take that to heart and hold it close. I think that we need more folks who care about the environment elected to public office, because they're the ones in decision-making roles. I got sworn in 2018 with an amazing group of environmentalists, folks who from all over, from South Carolina, from Colorado, from California, in my committees with me, talking about the environment everywhere, even on the House Armed Services Committee. We realize it's an existential threat, and it makes a huge difference when you have like-minded people serving with you to fight for the things that you know that we need, so that you guys have a planet that you can live on and be proud of. So I thank you again so much for bringing us here, and I'm just really honored to share this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Alyssa, can I just say one more word about Representative Haaland? She's very modest. You know, she mentioned she went and she worked for candidates, and she got lists and turned out Native American voters. But the most interesting thing to me about her story, and there are many, many interesting things, is she worked for Barack Obama doing that. and got him in the White House. And then she led our party, the Democratic Party in this state, which is a very, very tough job. You know, you have 4,000 or 5,000 people that are in the party, and every one of them thinks they can do the job better than you. And they tell you that every day. And she did that with such grace and such commitment. And then she ran for governor on the ticket and was the lieutenant governor. And then she didn't quite get there, but she didn't give up. And the next time she ran for Congress, and now she sits there as the first Native American woman in the United States Congress. To me, that's the story of our electoral system. It's open to all of you to achieve the same kinds of things. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Senator Udall and Congresswoman Haaland. This truly means the world. I myself, being a political science major and wanting to bring the Latina and Latino community to make sure they're advocated for, it means a lot. Many of the students who are on the panel today, this is so much of their alley of advocating and wanting to make a change. And in ending, it has to come to an end. I know it's so sad. We could be talking about climate change in 30 by 30 for hours. So if we didn't get to your questions today, audience, I'm very sorry. But remember, you always have the opportunity to advocate and go reach out to your congresswomen, reach out to your senators. That's what they're there for. You have a voice, make it heard, and make sure you're fighting for what you believe is right. That's truly what we encourage in a democracy, as you guys have been saying, across America, and especially in our state of New Mexico. No matter how old or young you are, remember, keep on advocating and keep it up. Keep up the talk about climate change. Once again, thank you, Congresswoman Haaland, and thank you, Senator Udall. As well as all our students who are here today, this event wouldn't be possible without your guys' help, and it truly means the world to me.
Bye-bye, everyone.
We're going to take a quick screenshot real fast as well.
Can we do it? We want to prepare everybody for a picture, yes.
You answer that and tell her that I'll be.
I think Adelaide's our technical expert on that.
All right, I'm almost
You ready
there.
to go?
That's good.
Yeah.
And thank you to Alyssa, Adelaide, Anthony, Gabby, and Kaylin.
Are we good at the screenshot? Thank you so much, Adelaide.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. I didn't know how they were going to make that into an hour. I just started.